Welcome to Biggus Geekus. We are your hosts. I am Joe.
And I'm Randy.
This is episode 39 of our podcast, and the date is Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021. All righty. So we have a few call-ins.
Okay, let's hit them. Start off right. Make sure I can hear them. Make sure I can see them.
No.
Joe?
No, there's no need for that.
Okay, I'm just going to comment. I'm going to randomly comment on each one. After you say it's done, I'm just going to say, well, thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. I'll just assume they all say glowing things about me. How about that?
That would be a bold assumption on your part.
It would be, but I'm feeling bold tonight. So.
God damn it, can you stop being so reasonable? I'm gonna end up liking you. And that would be a terrible thing, wouldn't it? Yeah, so well, maybe we would not throw dice at each other. I mean, I don't know. Is throwing dice at each other a sign of affection or of hatred? I remember I used to throw dice at my brother when we were about 13 with pure venom. So I think it can go either way. But good episode so far. So far is being the operative word, because I haven't listened to your negative material plane. But the 7 deadly sins, very interesting. And you talked about gluttony, and coincidentally, that was a key theme of one of my recent adventures.
You know, what I meant, I may have said, I had listened to the odd podcast twice because, I love hearing my voice, Joe. And even though I sound stupid, I think what I meant, Andy, was I thought we could throw dice together. I may have sounded like throw at each other, but I was saying we could play game. I think that was my statement. I didn't mean throw dice at him. Though if he wanted to, we could have a dice war. It would hurt though. Somebody would get hurt because those D4s are deadly.
Especially if you throw them under their feet as they're walking and they don't have shoes.
Oh, dude, Calvins. And the new metal dice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
So this is Andy, Good Mania 7000. I don't know where the 7000 came from. There are not 6,999 other Good Manias, but there was probably one. So anyway, you know how it works with nicknames. Of Expedition to the Grizzly Peaks. That's my podcast. And the gluttony thing, this is a Call of Cthulhu game that I ran. I adapted it from an old White Dwarf scenario called the Surrey Enigma. And we actually have the actual plays up on my other podcast, Grizzly Peaks Radio, which you're welcome to check out. I'm sure you'll probably hate it. But it's a bunch of old farts playing D&D. Not playing D&D, playing Call of Cthulhu. Surrey Enigma is the one. It's quite recent. We're still mid-season on it. And yeah, gluttony was the theme.
Well, I got to check that out because remember that was the one we were kind of stumped on, and we kind of defaulted to greed because gluttony was a hard one to sort of think how you would set that around. I have to listen to that. I'm glad Andy said that because I have heard Expedition to the Grizzly Peaks. Every episode I've listened to, which hasn't been a lot recently. When I first started last year, that was one of the ones I got. It's still on my feed somewhere, so I have to go back and listen to it. So, but I always thought he was pretty reasonable. I never had many. I don't know about the Cthulhu is not my bag, though I do like Lovecraft stories. Maybe I would like it. I'd like to hear how he used gluttony as a theme.
Yeah, I think that there's likely, and I've heard this a little bit from hearing other people who've played Call of Cthulhu, that it's not quite as scary as you might like it to be. If you like to be scared, it's difficult.
Well, it's hard. We talked about it last week. It's hard to scare people. I mean, it just is. I mean, unless people are really good GMs, maybe they're awesome at it. I don't know how to do it very well. It's probably just me.
So in Call of Cthulhu, it's not a Lovecraftian deity. I think it's from one of the others, maybe, I don't know, Lieber or Clark Ashton Smith or someone like that. there is a god called Igonilak, can't say it, Igonilak, who is this big, fat, headless dude with mouths in his hands, and he eats you. He latches onto you, and he just devours you. And he is in the scenario, but not really, doesn't really come into it. And I wanted to bring the horror closer to the players. So I came up with this idea of having these 4 rather large men that they encounter right at the beginning, who are called the beefsteaks. They are a club of gluttonous steak eaters, who are, they're pretty nasty.
Well, that already sounds pretty Cthulhu-like. Something's coming eating with their hands, and yeah, that's crazy.
I kind of like those guys.
Well, we do like steaks.
Yeah, they like steak.
I don't know
like
if
steak.
Andy likes we do, but it sounds like they're probably up to no good if I were guessing.
Probably.
But yeah, I'm with you. Steaks.
We could build bridges by,
Correct.
you know, you like steak, we like steak. Let's start there.
Good place to begin.
And at some point, one of them will kind of transmute into Igonilak. That's how Igonilak works, is he takes over a human host. And what their interaction with the players is really interesting, because at first they're just these jolly fat men in the pub with a hint of sinister, inviting them to their steak night, their beefsteaks night. And then as things progress, it's clear that they're eating stuff that perhaps isn't beef exactly, but the way they try to corrupt the players and the other NPCs is by getting them to eat this tainted meat that will draw them in under the influence of Igonilak themselves, and things get gruesome, of course, towards the end. Incidentally, the beefsteaks are a real club based on a 17th century eating club in London. Really interesting.
Oh, eating club. You and I'd probably like that.
Oh yeah,
Dude. Yeah, so they're eating other stuff, dude. Yeah, so they're up to it. That sounds pretty good, actually, Andy. That's pretty sweet.
Well, it's similar to how some of the other ways that in Cthulhu they tend to corrupt people by getting them to read books. So in that, you get them to consume tainted meat of some dubious thing.
Yeah.
And in other ways, in other stories, they get you to read a book and it infests your mind.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah,
cool.
You know, that's, you know, if you have a Cthulhu story going, if I'm playing in it, I have to hold myself back from just saying burn all the books all the time.
Right. Well, that's the good default maneuver, I would imagine. So, yeah, cool.
That's all from
Andy. That was
Andy.
good.
We got a couple up from.
Before you start the next one, I wonder. So that's a cool idea. Could because I was stumped in D&D. You could do a similar thing in D&D. Have a gluttonous deity or a gluttonous demon, and just transport it to a fantasy world and make it a feast. That's pretty cool. That's pretty transportable adventure.
There is also an anime, and we all know you love anime, so.
My absolute favorite, except not at all.
I'm trying to remember the name of it, but in the beginning of it, this family gets sidetracked on the way to their new house. Oh. And they go through this tunnel, and on the other side, there's this odd place. And at this odd place, there appears before them a great feast. Oh. And the two adults just get completely sucked into eating everything, and they get turned into pigs.
Oh, okay.
And then a lot of the rest of the story, their daughter, who didn't get tricked, she's trying to. A lot of the story, she's not actively trying to, because there's some promise that they'll be fine unless she screws up.
Right.
But she ends up getting them, rescued and all that. But it's an interesting other take on gluttony. I mean, these two just walked into this feast and just went head over heels, and as soon as they started eating, they were hooked.
Was it by their own volition? Was
Well,
it
the initial eating, yes,
okay.
but it's probably in the story that once you take the first bite, you're pretty much. If they would have resisted eating at all, they'd probably been all right.
Yeah, it sounds like an Andy's game on Cthulhu. You're trying to, which makes sense. It's this. Why are they always offering me all this stuff? They're constantly offering me these things, and why don't you do this? Why don't you enjoy this steak with me or this thing? Yeah, sounds pretty cool actually.
If you make it too innocuous, though, if it's just somebody inviting you to their table and then you eat and then you're screwed, that's kind of
There's a good topic.
Screwed.
As a GM, how do you? I'd be interested to know how Andy pulled that off because they're playing Cthulhu, and every player has to be like red alert, red alert. I mean, I would think just from these weird, creepy fat dudes that start out okay, but they're somewhat ominous. That's a tough portrayal as a GM, a fine line to be, because subtlety can be, if you're too subtle, you'll trick everybody. And if you're too vague or opaque or whatever, not really clear, I don't know. It's a tough thing.
Yeah, because you want to, the whole tempting thing can be hard to pull off without being a little ham-fisted. To be able to have a good chance of tempting without screwing over the players.
Right.
So it would be interesting hearing how he said they were sinister. So
correct.
There might have been some clue. They seem a little off or whatever. I don't know how you
probably you think about how each guy looked and something about them that seemed peculiar, pick that out and maybe focus on that, or at least mention that to each player or something. Yeah, that's cool. It sounds good. Thanks, Andy.
All right. Patrick is up.
Hey guys, it's your boy Patrick. On the subject of the sympathetic villain, I think the key is to let the players find out your villain's motivations before they have to go confront him, and that will give them the tough choice of what to do in the situation. I'm thinking back to a perfect example would be the first season of Supernatural, episode 12, called Faith. That is the perfect episode that I'm thinking of that would be that tough decision. They find out that their villain is a faith healer, and that he has they can't outright attack him because he's a faith healer and he hasn't really done anything wrong. Unbeknownst to him, his wife's using black magic to use a reaper to kill people that she deems sinful in order to give the recipients of the healing their second chance at life. A villainous act, but one done by somebody who doesn't really think they're the villain, and that may be a tough choice for your heroes to go up against. Just giving my 2 cents. Listen to the rest of the episode. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah, I remember that episode. It was like a classic revival type thing where they had a tent revival,
right.
in a Protestant sort of faith. And then this dude was a faith healer and his wife was up to no good. That is a good way. I think that is the challenge, is to give enough info. Like you mentioned, they could find journals or they could be told by NPCs. And I think you have to make that happen if you want it to be a sympathetic situation.
Right. You could also do it after the fact and have the PCs deal with the aftermath.
Oh, true.
If there is any negative aftermath, killing a villain who had some sympathetic qualities.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all of our calls. A little thin.
That's all right. Those good calls.
Yes, good call.
Patrick, thanks, Andy. Very good.
Thank you to both of you.
Yep, good one.
So, onto the positive material plane.
Yeah.
And we played.
Yeah, we did.
In person, face to face.
On Memorial Day. Monday. It was awesome. I really enjoyed. I have a question though. Joe's character in Savage Worlds you have the wanted hindrance. Is that a hindrance or an edge? Not wanted. What do you have? Enemy. Enemy minor, right?
Minor.
So, and his guys hunting down a serial killer. And we talked that last week. Well, no, surprise, surprise. I brought him out where you had a chance. I'm wondering, because I made him pretty tough.
Yeah.
You guys couldn't put him down. He was very defensive, and he escaped. He had the ability. He had some goodies. He got, magical goodies got him away. Did that feel like I robbed you, or because my intention was not to rob you? Because I kind of wanted to last a little bit longer than just one scene.
Oh no, I figured it was just some dramatic thing.
Well, I mean, if you had somehow cornered him, I was going to do it. But he had speed. He had very good defenses, even against the arcane. So he's going to be a tough dude to put down. Though I expect fully you guys will do it. Right. I just kind of, because my idea was, I wonder those and people that are listening, how do you? Because that can be hard to pull off. Here's the villain. Here's a villain that you hate, and then he gets away. And I didn't cheat. I mean, I did not cheat. You guys knocked him off that what was it? Scaffolding. He had to get up. He actually landed well. He had combat acrobatics, so he made his check quite easily, and he landed on his feet. And then he got distance from you guys. Someone tried to cast a lightning bolt on him and missed him because he had the arcane.
We missed a lot.
Yeah, and then he just said, "I'm out of here." And it's rare that you can introduce a villain, especially in a game like Savage Worlds, where you got to be really careful, because the characters, no matter how weak you might think they are, they can get lucky and they can take a villain out. But this guy's not like a main. In my mind, he's not going to be a main villain for everybody. He's just your foil.
Right. Right.
He's someone, and because once you take care of him, it's up to you, but you could lose that hindrance.
Right.
Remove it, which could be okay. I don't know how it helps you, but it doesn't. But I thought it was interesting. I just wondered how you felt, if you thought I was trying to because I was not screwing you guys over. I was
no. It was good. I wasn't expecting to be able to kill him right away, and once it was pretty obvious he was very well protected.
Yeah.
And we were all we weren't rolling very well. So
no. And he kind of got that. Yeah. And I was just worried, like, man, Joe's going to do an arrow and he's going to explode the damage like 12 times and kill him. That's what I thought was going to happen. But
my rolling night was really bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a tough night. We had fun. It was deadly. Oh my gosh. Patrick's character, the wizard, Lazard, almost had a hit the highest number on the fear table and had a heart attack when that ghost used its horrific visage on him in the tower. And I feel bad because I was kind of joyful. I didn't mean to be joyful at Patrick's demise, but I was like, whoa, that is probability wise, that's rare to happen. He rolled high when he didn't want to, and he had +2, and he just got into the worst range, barely made it in the worst range. And so it was like, you're dead unless someone makes a healing check at -4. Luckily, his wife's character could do that and made the roll and saved his bacon, but he ended up with Patrick, I think, played it pretty well. His character's heroic. He said he's switching that out for hesitant now, which is kind of cool.
Right. So, yeah.
Your wife had a good night rolling dice.
She had a great night.
Yeah. Nobody else was. And dude, Jeff, he got all the good cards, dude. Did you believe that? He went first
every time.
Every
just
time.
About.
Yeah. And Patrick had a hard night, man. 2s and 3s and 4s, like poop. But it was a good time. We had fun. It was good to get.
It was fun.
Hopefully we'll get to play again this weekend. We're hoping we get a squeeze in another game this weekend. So.
Right. I mean, it's more fun when I do better, but my rolls were terrible.
You guys enjoyed the somewhat, I wouldn't call him incompetent, but the kind of dumb wizard tower. The wizard who used his own name for passwords.
Yeah.
That was great. That was great. You guys were like,
awesome.
Holy crap, who is this doofus? Now you saw why he was always on probation for the guild, because he did weird stuff. So,
Well, I think he was on probation, but what got him worse was dabbling in the necromancy, probably.
Yeah, it cost him.
Though, I don't know, unless their point of view is that it's dangerous, not that it's immoral.
I would say probably my interpretation of the guild, which is what I've created. There's a guild of wizards, and they're just called the guild. They're so famous in this setting. And they would not consider necromancy, you should, not that you shouldn't do it, but you need to be highly skilled and be really careful. The only kind of magic they're against is the flippant use that sorcerers do, where they don't have to actually study from spells and use rituals and fancy hand waves. They just do cool powers, and they find that a frivolous use and a dangerous use, chaotic use of magic. So
Right.
so
Yeah, because sending an assassin to kill him and everybody in the tower probably isn't moral either. So
no, it's not. Whoever did that, and you might think it's the guild. You guys don't know who sent it.
it could have been his niece because she wanted his stuff.
Correct. She's on the mission. It could be her. That would be dastardly, but people can be that way.
Sure.
So some other good news. This was pretty funny and awesome. I want to thank one of our listeners, Taylor, and I want to thank Andy. I'm thinking his review of us being last time, his comment about us being noisome, interesting word, and I'm not knocking him. Taylor came out and who has a blog, Clerics Wear Ringmail Blog, which I encourage everybody to listen to. And he Facebooked us and gave us a review. And I thought it was so cool that I want to read it on air, if that's okay.
Sure. And one note, it's a blog, so they will need to read it.
Yes, it will be reading, but the Facebook post you can also read. Joe put it on his.
You could do a voice app to read it to you. I suppose
if you want to hear. I don't know how you could do video though, but you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wrote, and I'm guessing it was in response to Andy, and that's okay. This is all good natured. A good podcast with a good dynamic between hosts who truly enjoy the hobby. Their demeanor is salubrious and pleasant, with Randy's anodyne enjoyment, if enjoyment could be smelled, smelling of Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford. Contraposed to Joe's Atelier, Santal, Carmin, debonair, with just a hint of Arturo Fuente Chateau Maduro wrap. And so I laugh for many reasons. One is I didn't know what he was saying.
No.
I was pretty sure it was a compliment. And we found out it was basically fine wines and good cigars, what he was describing.
And cologne.
Cologne. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So anyway, so I guess, there's no judging sniffers. Sniffers have different things. Andy sniffs one thing, he sniffs another. We smell to a certain extent one way or the other. I guess it depends. But the long and the short of it, we must smell good. And then I translated it on Facebook and just kind of I took a little spin and I said, our demeanor. So to translate what he said, our demeanor is health-giving, nay, life-affirming. Perhaps Randy's enjoyment can be akin to inoffensive natural smells of cool breezes, sparkling water, and lush foliage. I love Joe's. Contraposed by Joe's rich and deep woody smell of confidence and charm with just a hint of rich but medium-bodied flavor. I mean, I just stole the words from the description of the cigars and the cologne and put it to us. So yeah, so thanks to Taylor for that. That was really kind. Thanks to Andy to help us set it up. And dude, I think we're going to have a t-shirt.
Right.
Because that whole discussion of smells in both directions. Do you like what I wrote? You think that's a good one?
Oh yeah, it's very accurate.
Yeah, we're going to say,
accurate to real life. That's us.
Right. Biggus Geekus. Now we could replace it with us, but I kind of like it because it's a podcast. Biggus Geekus. You just have to smell it to appreciate it. And so I think Patrick said he would do a workup on the art. We'll try to get a couple of t-shirts. We'll get a couple for ourselves. We got to discuss money and paying Patrick and what we can do on the website. Maybe we can even sell some to people if they're interested. So let's see what
would be the beginning of us having, what's the word? Merch. Yeah,
maybe it could be a Biggus Geekus merch, man. That'd be sweet. So we'll definitely wear it first, and then people can decide whether they like it. I liked it, but of course I thought of the phrase. It may not be that good.
Some other positive is we actually have traffic on the website.
Good deal. Is it from your
podcast? It's from my article. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent. I should write one too. I've been saying that forever, but I haven't. Especially now that I've actually played Aliens, I guess I could review that. But traffic is good.
Traffic is good.
Yeah. So is it now when you say traffic, what are you getting? Comments on the article?
Yes.
Okay.
Couple bad, obviously, because people don't like takes on orcs that aren't from a modern spin. So
right. And the thing that I don't get, it's just you say, I like orcs to be this.
Yeah.
Why does there got to be something wrong with them being monsters? There doesn't have to be. And if you want them to be cosmopolitan and everybody can play one and orcs are every alignment and there's good, evil, neutral, and in between, do it, man. It's your world. Do what you want.
Yeah, do what you want.
Mm-hmm. Any other positive stuff?
I don't think so. I think we're going to move on to main topic part 1, RPG collections, or actually the main topic, RPG collections and downsizing.
Yeah, so I just jotted a few questions and comments there, just kind of get us thinking. And first, I want to focus on the idea of collecting.
Right.
And we do have a friend, and probably a couple of them, that like to collect stuff. I mean, and collect gaming. I'm focusing more on RPG stuff.
Right.
I definitely have a collector mentality. I did comic books. I collected D&D stuff. I'm trying to think, I collected stamps for a very short while when I was very young. Were you ever bit by the bug and tried to felt like a collector, even when you're early days of RPG stuff or not?
I don't have that collector mentality really. Not really. I just buy stuff that every once in a while I buy stuff that that interests me, but I'm not a completist unless it's a very specific thing.
I do remember in early years we were playing, you were, I think, were you the first in our group to buy a role-playing game that wasn't D&D? Didn't you buy Trapper and Warhammer both?
Yeah.
And we tried our hand at that. We had more fun with Warhammer than we did Trapper.
No, you had the Marvel superheroes game.
Was that before those?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, I did do
Pretty
Marvel
sure.
Super. We tried that. And I remember I bought Top Secret. I feel like I bought Top Secret. I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't remember ever selling it, but I may have. Maybe just lost it.
Yeah.
That was like, I was like, this doesn't sound very good. And once I bought it, never got Boot Hill. But anyway, one of the problems I have, and I'm really working hard not to do this, is I do have a got to get them all Pokemon mentality. So when I invested heavily in Aliens. I literally have Aliens. I have the GM screen. I have the starter box. I bought Chariot of the Gods before I bought the starter box. And when I got the starter box, Chariot of the Gods was in there. Those were modules. Then I bought Destroyer of Worlds, which is a 3 or 4 night what's the name?
Campaign?
Cinematic adventure, which we should play. But I mean, that we're going to get use out of that because we did it. I mean, I enjoyed Aliens. You would play it again, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and this is definitely. I think in this one you play Marines. Everybody's Marines of some sort. A very different take. It has nothing to do with LV-426. It's its own story.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So I know you were a little bit. You said it was a little too familiar to the movies that we played. My point is, so when I got into 13th Age a couple years ago, went crazy. I have almost everything 13th Age. I got almost all the 3.5 stuff. I got just about all the Pathfinder stuff. Well, that waned after a short while. Pathfinder 1. Mm-hmm. So as I think about collecting, I do enjoy it. And it was maybe 8 years ago when I got into biking, I sold my first and second edition stuff and old school stuff. Sometimes I regret that, but not really, because I would literally have double the collection of crap that I already have. And I've kind of moved this around before, but I'll do it again. If you look over there, there's a huge case, and then that's not everything. I got stuff piled over there because I've got new stuff, not to mention the other room where we play at. I've got some stuff in there, miniatures all over the place. So at least they're halfway organized. But as I get older, as much as if I had the space, is it really, I think you told me that once. If you have the space, why get rid of stuff?
Right. So if you have enough storage space for the things you like, then there's really no reason to get rid of it unless you want to use that space for something else.
And at one time I was thinking, what crossed my mind was, I got all this old D&D stuff, and I wish I had saved it now because I could have sold it piecemeal for a lot more than what I got for it. But I was thinking, I'm going to leave my wife and daughter with all this crap. And I've told, I said, if I died, they would have it. And I told them, if, you guys were still around, I would want you guys to have the stuff you wanted, just give it to my friends that would use it. But part of me thinks in terms of thinking, because, 54 years old, think about the end. I'm not being morbid here. Just maybe I don't want to collect as much crap. It's even crossed my mind to sell my comics. I've sold chunks of them, but I've still got several thousand. So I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to stop that, now, some people, one of our friends, Patrick, he's like, he loves it. He's going to collect. He doesn't care. And that's fine. I think I want to pare down. As someone that wants to pare down, how do you think you begin that process?
So it's like pulling off a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It all depends on how ready you are.
Right.
I don't know. I would say, just off the top of my head, if you're wanting to pare down, why are you paring down? For space? And if you're talking about you in particular, you want to leave stuff that's not as cumbersome to be dealt with when you're gone.
Yeah.
I would say think about the stuff that you're going to use for sure.
Yeah.
Set that to the side. Everything else is fair game.
Especially when we've made this turn, at least me, I've felt like I'm in a swivel chair here. So if I feel like I've turned 90 degrees, if not 120 toward old school, I'm looking back again. And I bought on eBay some of the core books that I sold, but that was it. I didn't buy all my extra box sets. Remember, I had everything under the sun.
Oh yeah.
And I do look at it and go, dude, are you really gonna play first edition? Probably not.
And honestly, if you want to dip your toe into first edition or one of the other editions, it's just as easy to get a really cheap PDF.
Oh yeah, well I bought Osric. I got a $24 paperback book of Osric, which is all 1E, rewritten and organized better. At least that's what everybody says. So I kind of wonder, I guess I'm keeping it just out of nostalgia. And I wonder
if you have room for it, I don't see that it's anything to worry about or do anything about.
Right. It feels like I could, it's funny. I had a big basement in the old house. That basement. That was massive. But most of my first and second edition stuff was stored up in a closet. Now, I don't have as much storage space in my gaming area, but I have two separate rooms. I have this, I call it my DMing room where I prepare. And then, the game room right next to it we played in. And I think I have plenty of space, but it's used. I feel like I could, if I got rid of some of my cluttery stuff that I know I'm not going to use. Like, really, why did I buy Feng Shui 2? Seriously. Why did I do that, Joe? Why?
I don't know. I kind of wonder why anybody would want to buy Feng Shui 1.
It's Hong Kong action theater.
I'm sure that people like it.
Big Trouble in Little China, right?
Yeah.
It sounded cool. I think I bought it because it sounded cool for something I might do a super game on. And then I look at things like Tolas and all my third edition crap, which I have 3.5, a lot of that.
How much did you want to buy the newest edition of Tolas? How tempted did you feel?
Very, but I definitely was able to put the brakes on when I saw the price.
Well, how much was it?
It was several $100s to get in the Kickstarter, $200 or $300. I could be wrong. But honestly, I'm not sure. I think I pulled away from it before because I got Tolas. I'm not going to buy the 5e. And I think 5e was losing its luster with me when it came out. And I was like, and look, I don't hate 5e. I'm not feeling it.
Well, they're making it very easy to not buy their books.
They really are. Well, their books are less quality. I just simply don't think they're as good. Right. They're rehashing things and they're changing things they don't need to change, not to get negative, but just it doesn't interest me. Other folks it might. Clearly it does. It's the most popular game in the whole wide world, so it interests some people.
Sure. Yeah, so I would just say if you have the space and it's not bothering you to have it, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, let's say this.
But
So let's say, go ahead.
if there's some other reason other than space, that's a different situation. So like you're saying maybe you want to downsize so that what you have to bequeath is easier to manage.
Possibly, yes.
That's a reason.
How about more room for things that I actually use? I'm trying to.
That's related to the first point. So
Yeah.
if it's you want to use the space for other things and you want to get rid of your stuff, then you pick out the stuff you definitely want to keep and probably figure out the stuff you definitely want to get rid of because you know you're not going to use it.
What about the collectability issue? That always valuable. I think like that. Like, for example, if you looked up, I look back, I can see your shelf of stuff. You have some, what's the oldest thing you have back there? A player's handbook from first edition?
Probably.
You don't have like an original red box or blue box, do you?
No, nothing like that.
Yeah. So do you have the Night Below campaign box set?
I did. And I sold it a while back.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
No, I think I might have an Oriental I do have Oriental Adventures, but I may have a what's the name of it? Fiend Folio.
Oh yeah.
The one
is it the Melnibonians?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I think we have that.
That might be worth a little bit. I just but I think well, do I want to go through all that trouble? I mean, part of me, another reason I like your swap meet, when you talked about that, I was thinking I'd get rid of some stuff. I mean, I might bring a bunch of crap to trade.
You might. You never know.
That might be a way
Pat will be there, so you definitely have a collector there.
Well, we got, Greg T. He's got a bunch of stuff too, so he might have to trade.
There's got to be others, and I had something.
What about giving it away?
All right.
Yeah, I feel like I could bring stuff. I did that one year at Gen Con or at Cabin Con. I gave a few things away as prizes, but they were really I didn't like them that much. But I mean, some people wanted them. If I brought some stuff that I was thinking about, I almost think I would rather give than sell some of my stuff away.
That's cool too. You could just set them out and say, take
what you want. Yeah.
If you knew something you wanted to give away, if you were pretty sure somebody at the Cabin Con wanted or would like, I would say approach them individually.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you just set them on the table and just say, hey, I got some stuff to get rid of. Take what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, let's suppose you start down this road of downsizing to maybe minimize. Do you think one motivation might be, and this crossed my mind, part to do with age, but partly to just do with time, just in general. How many games are we going to play? We've talked about this a little bit. Like Savage Worlds is definitely on our rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Some version of D&D will always be in the rotation.
Yep.
And then what else really is there?
13th Age.
13th Age. That feels a little D&D-ish to me, but yeah. Aliens, I had such a good time. Right now, I feel like Aliens could be a one-off sort of thing we can play from time to time. But once I've run through the modules, I'm probably not going to write my own scenarios.
Right. So there's probably some one-off systems, but there's not going to be too many of them.
No.
Just a few, or maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah. So do you have, so I kind of wonder if, and when I buy something new, because I'm not going to pretend like I never will, I think you might have said this before, I think it's a good idea, if you're trying to keep your collection down, just buy the core book. That's my rule of thumb when I buy a board game, because I'm not a big board game guy. I don't buy all the expansion packs anymore. Kind of done with all that. Right.
Another thing you can do is, if you definitely are wanting to downsize, you could, if you have something you want to buy, you pick out something you want to get rid of.
Right. To balance it.
Yeah.
Can't buy this until I get rid of this.
Right.
For me, it'd be like, can't buy this until I get rid of 2 things.
Right.
I'm making a 2 for 1. And that means give it to somebody, sell it, whatever. Yeah, that's true.
And you can always have a lot of the things that you're wanting to give away or whatever on PDF. So it's not like I mean, there's probably some exceptions, but just about everything that we can get our hands on RPG wise is available on PDF and hard copy. Sometimes it's exclusively one or the other, but not very often.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, if I ever wanted to get back some of my second and first edition stuff, I just buy it on drive-through, PDF for $9-10, and then you have it, for as long as you have electronic stuff. Do you think is there a sweet spot for having enough stuff?
That's so individual.
It is.
It's very individual. There is no way. Some people just have one book.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people. They just you mean like one single book?
Yeah, have the player's handbook.
Yeah,
I knew people like that. All they have is the player's handbook. Back in the day.
Yeah.
You don't need
Probably even
anything
now.
else.
I'm sure they're doing 5e. I bet there's people just buy the player's handbook, go, I'm good, and then they use D&D Beyond or some other, PDF, some kind of thing, and they get all that extra stuff that way. Yeah, it's possible. What about minis? With minis, I feel like I don't see a reason to get rid of them because I'm not sure you can have too many miniatures. I mean, because what I mean is you can see a figure and go, oh my gosh, I could write an adventure for that. That would be a great, because I got that blue Draco Lich thing, which is phenomenal. So, but you're kind of chuckling. I know, but I mean,
Well, this is the thing. Collection. Yeah, space. Minis take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And they can quickly outpace a book collection.
Yeah, mine. Hello.
However, they've got these new that you've gotten into the new flat.
Yes.
Well, not just a cardboard cutout. They're very well made.
And Patrick showed me something called, what are they called? Something minis. They're like, but thick though. They're thick plastic. But they look really good. They're kind of like Arknight. They're a little more expensive, but they're also sturdier. But I'd say be careful with that because you're going to start inching closer and closer to an actual mini when you do that. The character flats are pretty awesome. And I opened up my last night, was chatting with Pat and his wife. They came over for a little while. I pulled up my Pathfinder beginner box. I got a boatload of pogs, dude, that look really good. I mean, they are really good. I mean, you could argue, and Debbie's like, she tells my wife, she's like, you can't possibly need any more minis. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. And then they make an Orcus mini.
Yeah.
And then they make a sweet Draco Lich. Gotta have it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I want
So
out others in the list. I want to pay those
there's
issues.
a lot of good ways that you can have plenty of stuff to play with, but not need a lot of space for it. With PDFs and the flat minis, you can have a book or two, and then everything else can be electronic, and then the minis can all be flat, and you can have not need a whole lot of space for it, and you could still be kind of a collector.
I think it'd be neat if you could. Here's something I've always been kind of a little bit jealous of some people that I hear about. I've heard several folks in my life. I got all the gaming stuff I need, and they literally have just like first edition books, and they still play that, and they don't care about what's new. They don't care about it, and I sometimes wonder if I really clean my collection down to say 2 rows on a bookshelf, maybe 1, would I be inclined? I think it would push me to be more creative because they have to be. They're either very boring games, which they might be happy with, or they're super creative. If you have the core 3 books from second edition and a couple of splat books, and that's it, and you've been running that way for 20-something years, and you're happy as a pig in slop, you're probably I would imagine you're very creative or very into your own campaign.
Right. It might be a slow moving campaign. I mean, the amount of experience points you needed to advance in those older games is a lot. And it's possible that, after 20 years of play, you might only be 10th level.
Gosh.
Depending on how frequently you can play and what you do when you play, they might be heavy RP. Who knows?
And that's tough because I think about us at our age, and I think I really want to have rich campaigns. I want to see our characters progress, but we don't want to go too fast because we've had that problem where you level too fast, you don't know your character's powers. But I want to go faster than, as much as I love the experience points, when I look at those tables from first, second, any version of D&D, even third edition, they just seem like forever to gain levels. And especially if you and I, we want to put a game through its paces. I really want to see 1 to 20 in D&D, whatever version I choose.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's going to be difficult in versions that don't have 20 levels. So
Yeah.
So you're talking.
Yeah, right. D&D. I'm talking not so much basic, not so much OD&D or white box, but games that actually go 1 to 20.
Yeah. So what book in the Mulvey? I guess Mulvey was just basic and expert though.
Right. It was Menser that went from basic to immortals, and he went from 1 to 36. He's the rules encyclopedia guy.
Right, but immortals is past 36.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Right. So master is the one that's right before that. And that I'm not sure what the level range is.
36. I've looked at it.
No. I mean what the level range of master is. So what does it cover? Does it cover 14 to 36 or is it 21 to 36?
Well, I know the expert book went to 14. And so you have companion and you had master, right? It goes basic, expert, companion, master. So companion and master did 15 to 36. Probably companion did 15 to 20 or 25, and master probably did 20, 25 to 36. I'm guessing. I don't have them, so I don't know. It's the kind of game though. Even that, if we got into rules encyclopedia and we're really digging it, I'd want to play the 36th level.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, way before I die, I want to do that, and I want to play something else. So I think I'd like to, maybe we're getting off topic here, but it'd be interesting to think about that. That's how do you pace? What's a good leveling pace for old men that want to see stuff? Or leveling pace if you want to play the whole game, No
matter what age.
Yeah, no matter what age. So right now, since you're not the collector, and I look at your shelf and that seems modest to me, though you have a good amount of stuff. What, right now, if I said, hey, are you excited about buying anything? Are you?
Maybe some old school stuff, like the old school essentials.
Right.
Whenever I look at like Osric and some of the other ones that they only really go to, even old school essentials, it only goes to what, 11?
I feel like old school essentials might be
Maybe
BX.
14.
Might be 14.
That's okay. So it has to be something like that where you got a range. If it only goes like to 7th or 8th, I'm not really interested.
Right.
Especially if it's a D&D scale, old D&D scale set of rules.
Right.
But that's about it. I'm really not excited about anything WotC or Paizo.
Yeah, me neither.
So
Except minis. That's about all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of this, Joe? What if I said I'm going to stop buying gaming stuff? I'm done. I mean, granted, you say you're lying, Randy, but let's say I'm not. Let's say I'm not. I'm just done. I'm using what I've got, and that's it. I could literally play for the rest of my life and probably the rest of my grandson's life.
Yeah, with the stuff you have. Oh yeah.
In fact, you wouldn't even need it. But I mean, even with there would be stuff that he wouldn't get to play. Probably. Which is kind of silly to me. It seems wasteful. That's part of the reason I'm thinking about downsizing. I don't want to make this just about me, but I know Joe's not a collector. I am the collector. So
I can see why you're struggling.
Yeah.
If there's a struggle, because you're a collector, but it seems wasteful.
It seems wasteful now. So I think I have to come.
You can't get around the wasteful side of collecting, because most collectors, they collect stuff to look at, but never do anything with.
Well, it's like you see someone buy, who was it that bought the Action Comics one not too long ago for $3.5 million. He's not gonna pull it out and read it every couple of months.
It's a trophy.
A trophy, and it's a vanity item. But I mean, I'm not knocking it. I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm tired of. As far as my books go, I do like my vanity items, but that's just kind of it's kind of cool to hand to Vecna. But even just having said that, I'm not gonna do anything with it. I mean, it's nothing to do with it. It's not a miniature.
Right.
And so, but when I think about this, I wonder if people out there that are listening, I would love to get some calls in. Who thinks about, do I have enough stuff? I mean, I know we have some people at CabinCon that are minimalists, whether it's by choice or by financial ability. And we have some who buy a lot of crap like I do, and some that are kind of in the middle. You know, I wonder if it's a conscious thing that everybody does. I'm only going to buy the core book if I play it. All right, this thing sounds cool, but I'm not. But I guess there's the thing: if you're just a player and you're like, man, I really like this new Savage World setting, but nobody's running it, why would you buy it?
Right.
Right.
So when I was in Germany,
Yep.
and for part of the time I was in DC when I was in the military, I didn't buy much because I wasn't playing much.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no point to buying anything.
Were you still trying to get information about new things that were coming out? Did you still go to game stores, or did you just stop?
Yeah, I went, but it was mostly just browsing because it was like, yeah, I'll look at it, and if it's really cheap, I might buy it.
Right.
But
you'd be like, what's the point? I'm not going to play it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because I look at my collection now, I could probably cut mine down to a third. And
a lot of this is personal preference and your temperament.
Yeah.
So you're not consciously thinking about a lot of this stuff. You're just doing. If someone asks you, you might say stuff like, yeah, this book's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, I just got to have everything.
Yeah.
But
I don't, that's how I've been. And I don't think I feel like I'm coming to a turning point. As much as I've spent a lot of money in the last couple of years with Kickstarters and stuff, I think as they come in, I'm feeling like, especially like Savage Worlds. Man, I love Savage Worlds, but I wish I hadn't pulled the trigger on the Pathfinder thing, even though it'll be great. It'll be great even for a Savage Worlds fantasy. There'll be a lot of good stuff I can pull from. But having said that, am I going to really? I'm fine that I did pull the trigger with Deadlands, but I'm not doing it again. I don't care what they upgrade Savage Worlds to. So there's so many games that I just think I'm happy where they're at. And so I need to probably stop buying extra crap, so.
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable.
What would it take you to jump onto a new edition of something? D&D 6e, I don't mean that, but it's some new game that you played before and it comes out. What do you have to see before you're going to jump in?
Oh, there's a lot of factors. If it was D&D, it'd have to be either WotC now being completely restructured and new people working there, most likely, or they somehow take a different direction,
right?
In spite of the people that work there not wanting to,
right?
So, and if same thing with Paizo, they'd have to go a different direction creatively and be less. Anyway, they have to be different. Let's just leave it at that. For anything, a new edition, anything else, it just would all the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I would know it when I saw it. That's for sure.
I can tell you after 5e, and Pathfinder both, not knocking the companies. I just know I feel like I've pulled the trigger on the new edition the last time. They would have to do something. They had to knock my socks off. I'd have to see it first. And I waited 2 or 3 years before I bought any kind of 5e stuff. And Pathfinder got tired of eventually stopped buying stuff. So
it's hard to imagine a permutation of tabletop game rules that we haven't already seen or heard about. That would be so. It would have to be in the fluff that would be exciting, not necessarily the rules, because
we got enough.
20, 3d6, 2d10, all of it's fairly roughly similar.
Yeah, it is
good enough
for us anyway. The kind of things we like. Yeah. All right. Have we talked enough about downsizing?
Sure.
You got any comments you want to add or things you want to talk about in that area?
I don't think so. I think no, I don't think so. Okay. I think we can move on to Cabin Con.
Yeah.
I'm not downsizing at Cabin Con. The only way you can downsize at Cabin Con is by murdering people.
Ooh, murder.
We don't want to do that.
No.
Much.
So I guess, we don't, not much, just when they're not looking. So I want to just discuss, after this year, I had a couple, I know Tim called last week and he thought it was the best big cabin con I've ever had, and I agree. Any cabin con over 20, that was the most excellent one. It was a good cabin con in general. And when I think about people, I'm not just people, downsizing people. I'm not saying I'm only thinking about doing it, but also downsizing the number of games I personally prepare. I've always said I'm going to limit myself to 2, but I think I've only done that 1 year. I prepped 4 or 5 different games this year. Do you think, what are the advantages? What advantages do you think a lot? So right now we're at 20-ish. I can't imagine us going beyond 25. It just doesn't seem.
Well, we don't have room for 25 or more than 25.
We can do 20. No, right. No, we can't go 25, not even remotely comfortably. One dude had to leave. We missed Big D. And who else was missing this year? Just 2? Who am I forgetting? I don't know. Anyway, let's say if we had those 2 had come, we'd have been at 23-ish and near the max. I think the advantage is you get to hang out with a lot of different guys. That's fun.
Yeah, that's an advantage for sure.
And you have the possibility of more games. So this year,
on paper.
Yeah, on paper. And same with games on paper. You have
that's what I'm saying. On paper, it looks like you have more games because you have more people.
But I think this year, I think there was a confluence of events this year. I think it was a matter of a lot more people came in, I thought. And I think a lot of people thought, well, there's going to be games there. They've had this past year and a half's been hard on everybody. Like, I'm just going to go chill. I don't want to work. I want to just show up and play. And that sounds good until you get there and there's 3 DMs. I mean, on the books, not counting Larry and Lewis, who Tim commented they ran some games off the cuff. I was ready to run. Josh was ready. Tim was ready. John was ready. And Dave was ready. That's 5.
That's pretty good, really.
Huh?
That's pretty good, even out of 20 people.
If we run every single day, if the majority of us run every single day, right? So if someone takes a day off, if I'd got with those 5 people, we had five people, and we said, okay, on Thursday, Dave's taking it off. On Friday, Randy's taking it off. On Saturday, Josh and Tim are taking it off. And then on Sunday, John's taking it off, or some version of that. If we'd have been that organized, 5 DMs might be all right for 20-ish people. I mean,
yeah, because how many groups can you have out of 20? Reasonable size groups.
Yeah, so 4.
Right, 4 times
a GM
5.
and 4 players. 5 people counting the GM, so 4. So 5 GMs should be enough. I think the thing is, and this is also tough, if you prepare a game and then don't get to run it, I think some people feel bad. But like for me, I didn't get to run the Supers game, not this past year, but the previous year, and I just let it sit. And I had it. So that was 1 less. So I should say I really didn't prepare 5 games. I prepared 4 because the Supers game was done.
Right.
So when I think about that, I think as long as we have, I really think we're better off probably having 7 or 8 games ready to run, 7 or 8 GMs that can run multiple times, because then GMs can take time off and play.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, it's not great if I just get 1 day off. I mean, I don't care.
7 could bring 1, 2, 3 a piece, and there may still be plenty of games because 4. Okay. Sunday's only really good for 1 slot.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday are 3 each.
Right. As a minimum, you could do more if you're bold. If you're burn the midnight oil like we did on Saturday night, you could play later.
So if we had 4 groups going at one time.
Yep.
Every day, each slot.
Day for 3 days. Mm-hmm.
That would be 3 times 4, 12 times 4, 48 games.
12 times 3, 36, plus 4 more. Because on Sunday, just 1 slot.
Right. Oh, so 3, not
40. 40 games.
Yeah.
There's 40 games we'd need. Now, that doesn't mean there's got to be 40 DMs. It means that a DM has to be willing to run his game multiple times. So my 2 games that I prepare could be theoretically, those 2 games could be, well, 1 game could be 6 slots. I could theoretically run, eight different,
10.
4 games.
You could run it every slot every day.
Yes.
That would be 10.
Right. But we don't have enough people you wouldn't have enough people, unique people. You could run run a game at most 4 times.
Right.
So maybe a little more, maybe almost 5, depending on the DMs, if you get all the DMs in there. So you could run, say, 4 or 5 slots a single game. That would be an interesting way to downsize Cabin Con, but not everybody wants to run so many times. I enjoy running the same game over and over because it gets better.
Right.
It's easier for me to run. I know what's coming, and it's kind of fun to watch. I like to watch how different players, like that white box game. I'd love to seeing that twice. I would have loved to run the Aliens game twice. I like to see how 4 other players or 5 or 6 other players would have handled that scenario. It would have been fun.
Yeah, see how many people pull out the command ability.
I think that's cool. It's got to be. It's fine. It's a thing. It's okay.
Oh, I'm totally fine with it. I'm just wondering,
I know.
People have a hard time with?
I mentioned it just because.
Control.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
That's cool. Yeah.
Where's our sweet spot though?
For number of GMs?
I think let's do the thing. I think number of people. Our sweet spot is probably 20. It's probably 18 to 20 is probably a sweet spot. We can go over, we can go under, but probably 18 to 20 is a sweet spot for the number of people there. You think?
Potentially. It depends. The thing is,
we're talking about being less organized, which might be dangerous with more people next year.
right. So less organized shows the weakness of being less organized doesn't lie in it lies in how assertive people are.
Yes.
So if we draw back on the organization, we're relying on the people there, the players scaring up a DM, the DMs scaring up players. We're relying on that. And if we find out we can't, I don't like that word because we're there to, it's a vacation. We're there to relax. We're not there to, fun. Yeah. I think we should stick to our guns with organization.
Yeah.
And eventually I think we'll find more DMs come with games and then people will eventually get the clue. But if we're like, oh, we got to be organized now because it looks like people aren't finding games or players.
We are talking about adding other workshops because the Magic one went so well.
Mm-hmm.
Adding some other workshops, which could fill up some time. But it also, if I do one, it takes away. I mean, I'm one of the main GMs. If you take away me, or John, that's a pretty. If we're playing in a game, that opens up pretty big holes that people have to fill.
Right.
Because he and I run a lot. Who else runs close to him? Tim does a little bit. Philip used to a lot. And not that you have to. No one has to. I have no issue. For Philip ran so much. If he decided to take the next 3 cabin cons off, I'd have no problems with that. He could just be a player. And you've run enough to take cab. You played a lot more than you've run, but you've run enough that you can run every couple. I could take a cabin. I could take 5 cabin cons off. I mean, I'm not bragging, but I've run a buttload of games.
Oh, sure.
And I don't mind. I like it. I love it. I prefer running games.
There was one cabin con where I took a little extra time to eat, and I missed getting in a game because we weren't. It was later in the day. It wasn't. I dropped the ball for myself. So I was like, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. And I made sure to get some words in about not just having 10 minutes in between slots, between games.
I think minimum, or what we run it with an hour between them is minimum.
So, and I didn't just whine about it. I said, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that I wasn't the only one that had that issue.
You want to be able to eat and sit and chat and not miss a game.
Right.
I think that's okay. And I think the way that's going to happen better is if you don't organize it as much. If I just put my Temple of Elemental Evil up and you're like, hey, Randy, I want to play in that after dinner. I'm like, okay, Joe's in, I have 5 other people. And they're like, hey, we're ready to play. I said, no, Joe's still eating. Let's just chill for a little bit. And when he gets done, we'll play.
And that would go for anybody. And so we just have to make our own case, if you want more games, but you don't want to run any games, then you need to be assertive. Get out there and
I
find a
think
DM.
we got a lot to chew on and talk about for our business meeting in the winter.
Yeah.
So, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So as far as downsizing, why would we want to?
Yeah, right now it's a sweet spot. I don't think we want to add too many people right now. We might have 1 or 2 new people next year, but if we get to 25, we gotta say, hey,
We got to have a hard stop.
gotta have a hard stop. Yeah. So, all right. Okay. We ready to move on to the next?
Let's move on to dig this setting. And today we're talking about Deadlands.
Oh,
Wild
this is
West.
near Planescape for me, dude.
Yes. Wild West meets zombies while magic and technology collide.
It's a Savage Worlds setting.
Yes.
It was technically a role-playing game before Savage Worlds came out. The original Deadlands was its own game. And they made a simpler system in Savage Worlds, and then they savaged Deadlands. Same company, Pinnacle, did all that. And now Deadlands is kind of their premier setting. I would imagine it's probably their most popular.
Probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's incredibly evocative. I like how it's connected to the real American West. Very, very cool archetypical characters like a gunslinger. It's kind of got that Wild West TV show from back in the day, or the movie with Will Smith, that kind of vibe. You can play gunslingers, living or dead. Play the undead. What are they called? Harrowed. And I think their characters are awesome. Huckster, who's like a card player, a gambler, but in that game, the gamblers, some of them are actually wizards because Hoyle was a wizard and he hid all his secrets in the deck of Hoyle's poker card, which is really cool.
Right.
Mad scientists and the blessed are kind of like clerics. Ghost Rock's awesome. That's a super fuel in that alternate Wild West.
We haven't run into too much of that in our Deadlands.
No, I haven't.
Escapades.
That's true. I haven't used that as a plot device or as a MacGuffin for you to get or to protect a Ghost Rock mine. I mean, Ghost Rock's very volatile too.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I haven't used that much. I haven't used the rail lines much. So they have a really cool, the different rail barons are literally in competition, and they get real altercations that involve guns and magic and stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. The Reckoners are the big bad guys. There's these demonic entities from the hunting grounds. In fact, they started the whole Deadlands campaign sets off after the Battle at Gettysburg, where both sides, the North and the South, both sides that are killed rise as zombies when the Reckoners are making their move to influence the world.
Right.
It's all about fear, and I think it's a really dangerous place, which is why I think you and I both like it. It's not a CR appropriate game where you you could run into a Mojave Rattler at
as a novice.
As a novice, and you better rethink your plans then. If you don't have heavy firepower, it better be about running.
Sure.
They have some great monsters. The Hanging Judge is so cool. He's a judge who's gotten twisted in his unlife, and he goes out hunting people and trying to hang them, whether or not they're really guilty or not. Prairie ticks and things like that. That's not like a little tiny thing. They're about the size of a dog, but even bigger. So they're pretty cool. I just think the book itself is one of those. The reason I compare it to Planescape for me is I just love to read it. I can just read the books and get caught up in all the fluff, and it's just phenomenally evocative and fun to read.
Right. The setting is bound up in the rules, but I don't think that if you really didn't like the Savage Worlds rules, it really wouldn't be that hard to adapt it to another rule set.
Oh, they did it. There's a D20 version of Deadlands.
Right.
That was done during the third edition era.
I'm not surprised. It's it's just a very well written. It's very interesting take on the Wild West.
Yes, with the magic and the zombies and demons.
Weird West.
Weird West. Yeah, that's kind of a subgenre now. There's other games like Six Guns and Sorcery. There's a lot of games that kind of take that vibe. I kickstarted one a couple years ago. I'm still waiting to get it. It's about ready to be printed. It was originally called Dark Trails, but they got in trouble with Cthulhu. There was a Cthulhu Trails or something, And Chaos Team was cool about it. I heard the scuttlebutt, the guy that created this game. Did you play in that one shot I did where we played Dark Trails? It was a DCC RPG game based on the Weird West, and you were
I
playing.
don't think so.
Yeah, we used 0 level funnel characters, and like everybody died.
Well, obviously.
but it was it's based on the DCC RPG engine, and it's called Weird Frontiers now. And I simply kickstarted it because 1, I was kind of into DCC at the time. 2, I contacted the guy when I'd heard about him making this game through Gaming and BS, and he's like, "Hey, would you guys play test this for me?" And he sent me playtest documents, and we played. And plus, it looks really good, and it's got a lot of fodder for my Deadlands game. So even if I don't play Weird Frontiers, I'll have another cool book to add to my Deadlands kind of collection or Weird West collection. Yeah, that was pretty cool. What things? I think when I think about too, yeah, you could strip it pretty easily. You could strip the setting out and play with any rules that you wanted. Though I think
very easy. I
feel like you're doing it as a service, though. I do think it fits Savage Worlds perfectly.
It does. It does. I'm just saying, if you don't like Savage Worlds as a game system, you could easily port the flavor, the fluff, to probably whatever system you like. Really.
Did you have anything else positive you'd say about it?
It really scratches a old West itch.
It really does. Without being just, I mean, look, I'm sorry, Boot Hill. And those games, they're fine. Aces and Eights from Kinzer Company. I'm sure I've played them both. I'm not playing. No, that's wrong. I've not played Boot Hill. I've played Aces and Eights at Gen Con. I think I even talked about it. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, they're fine. But I don't know if I want to just play a true classic Western, or if I did, it'd only be a one shot.
Right.
Deadlands feels like you could do more, though I've never run a long-term campaign. I've run kind of an extended short campaign, and that was about it.
But it's cool to play the gunslinger.
Yes.
And
that archetype is awesome.
Yeah. And with Deadlands having more going for it than merely other gunslingers, it makes it a little more interesting and fun.
Yeah. Fight zombies, you can fight monsters things, you can fight demons, all sorts of crap. And then all the things that go bump in the night, they came to life when the Reckoners came into the battle at Gettysburg. It was pretty cool. I have, as a con, I have said that I have found it hard to run a long-term campaign, but I think that's more me. I think Deadlands is wonderful one-shot games, or at least a one adventure. It's just hard for me to envision. And I like playing seasoned characters. Think of seasoned as, if novice characters, beginning characters in Savage Worlds are kind of, I think they're 4th, 5th level equivalents to D&D characters. And season's more like 6th, 7th, 8th level characters, maybe not that much, maybe just 6th level, because they don't go up that much. But I think it lends itself to great stories that are kind of told and then done. But I do think they have several. I got all the they had these. They don't call them adventure pass, plot point campaigns.
Plot points, yeah.
I have the ones from Deadlands Reloaded. They're really good. You could tell a big long story for that. I've always wanted to. I also wish they had angelic beings. I'm kind of surprised they don't. They had the demons.
It's dark.
Yeah, it's true. It is dark. Well, you could have dark angels if you really want to go down that road. And
that's true. That's true.
If you want to keep it dark and edgy, you keep them dark and edgy too. I've always thought they should be there. And sometimes it's really over the top, but I don't know if that's not just Savage Worlds mechanics, because you can, with a great roll, a novice character can destroy a Mojave Rattler with one shot. So
unlikely, but possible.
It's possible. It's more likely he's going to be Mojave Rattler food. Yeah.
Much more likely.
You have any other cons about the setting for you? Not very many for me, really.
Did I say any cons? I said a lot of pros. I don't think I really have any cons, to be honest.
Right.
Hey, it would be more suitable for, my cons would be more suitable for the negative material plane, but it's more nitpicky nerd history type things where they take the common narrative about how things worked in the past and transpose it into the game.
Yeah.
You know, everybody in the South was extremely racist, and everybody in the North, what's racism?
They were angels, yes.
which wasn't true, but
No, not true.
It's a game, so who cares?
Yep. So how would you rank this bad boy? Extra small to 2X.
Probably extra large.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely love it. I'd play it anytime. Yeah.
Definitely.
Top 5 game for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think for me, it's more the setting than it's the setting,
Yes.
not necessarily just the savage treatment of it.
Yeah.
The setting I like.
The rules don't do that much for me. It's just
Right.
the world is so rich. If someone said, "Hey, I got a D&D, I got a D20 version of Savage Worlds or of Deadlands," I'd play it. I got a Vampire the Masquerade rules version of Deadlands, I'd play it. The rules doesn't matter much. The setting is awesome.
Right. And because talk about swingy,
Yeah.
Savage Worlds is swingy.
Super swingy. Watch out. It can be all roses and unicorns, or it can be the thorns and poop from the unicorn.
Yeah. If you call any D20 game swingy,
Yes.
no,
No comparison.
none.
But I think I mentioned before, I've heard Shane Hensley interviewed, and he said he built the game that way on purpose. He thought there should always be a chance for something crazy to happen. And he likes games a little swingy.
No guarantees.
Yep, no guarantees. All right.
Well, we are going to have a negative material plane after the ending credits or music, or we'll just go on the video end. We'll go right into it.
Yep.
The audio end, just the podcast end, it'll be after the music stops.
Right.
So if you'd like to support our show, please help get the word out and check out our website at biggusgeekuspodcast.com. If you want to support us, go to the support tab. But most importantly, share it with your friends. Tell everybody about it. Even if you can't buy a t-shirt yet, paint it on your t-shirt and wear it around.
That's right. Your t-shirts you have now are not as cool as they would be if it says Biggus Geekus something.
That's right. We're on YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be nice if you could rate us out on iTunes or other podcatchers and in YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. That helps.
Yep.
Our email. There is a new email.
Oh, sweet.
I have changed. It's not that the old one is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we got much of any email there.
Right.
It is now. Hold on a second. I want to tell you the right thing.
That's a good idea.
The right.
So questions at biggusgeekuspodcast.com is still an option.
Yes.
But this is the new one they're eventually going to be checking and expecting to get tons of just incredible overflowing praise emails, right?
Yes, overflowing. There should be, after this podcast, questions at biggusgeekus.podcast.com should be full.
Okay.
It should be.
Should be.
All right.
So you got a sweet new one coming up. What is it?
All right. We're going to delay announcement until next time because
okay.
I want to make sure I tell you the right one.
Okay.
And I didn't write it
down.
There
will be one coming. All right. No problem. No worries, my man.
All right. We got a bunch of podcasts that we'd like to encourage you to give it a listen, and there will be a list of them in the show notes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we sign off?
Not me.
Temporarily
for a negative plane to overtake us. Yep.
Yes. Good. Well, this is Joe.
And I'm Randy.
And remember, if you can't be big like us, then be geeks like us. Okie dokie. Are we going to transition right into the negative material plane?
We are. I feel the negative material plane calling my name.
All right.
So I got one more whinge on Ravenloft. And it has to do with something that Tinkar said middle of last week. He had read there's an article on Ian World about Ravenloft. And the guy made a comment. The original Ravenloft was kind of xenophobic. And for the village, so if you went into a village in, say, Barovia, I'm talking even the box set, all of them are like that. They even said in the rules, elves and dwarves would be looked at as true strange creatures.
Oh yeah.
And most the Ravenloft domains were human centric. I mean, big time. And so these folks, because of the fear level, are very xenophobic. And a guy made a comment that xenophobia is often a consequence of fear. If a village is afraid of something, if they have a lot of high fear level, they're going to be afraid of new things.
Oh, sure.
Different things. And so he said xenophobia could be a consequence. And I remember that being a real thing in Ravenloft. They used to say, if you play an elf or a dwarf, some places would look at you like, oh my gosh, what manner of dark fey creature is this? And now let alone if you play a crazy tiefling warlock or some dragonborn or some other crazy race.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, if I was going to run Ravenloft, that's how it would still be. I like that as a challenge. And if you're going to choose, and of course the people came back at him, well, look, you can do that. It says in Curse of Strahd that it's an option, but in this new modern gaming world, blah, blah, blah. Look, if you want to do that, that's fine. I would just maintain you're taking away a tool the DM has to scare the characters, not the players. But, make life tough on them. I mean, you want to make it tough on them. And I always did. Ravenloft was meant to be a place the characters want to leave as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one way to do it. So if you have a very, cosmopolitan party, you are not going to find a lot of welcome in the inns and stuff in the world of Ravenloft. Ravenloft.
Right. Barovia isn't cosmopolitan.
Not at all. Not even remotely.
It can't be.
No.
It's not a coastal town where there's lots of trade going through. No. It's disconnected from everything else by the mist. So every once in a while, things pop out of the mist.
There was an elven guy, though, in the book named Jander Sunstar that ended up fighting Strahd in one of the novels. He was an elf or a half elf, but I mean, that's a novel for you. And I think he faced a lot of ridicule and quote unquote racism because you would. I think they'd be very xenophobic. They'd be pitchforks and stuff. But they play that down and then the new rules. And if you want to, that's fine. But to me, that's another thing of, well, we're going to make it less Ravenlofty, make it less scary. Just going to play like, oh, no one really cares that you're a dragonborn. Which means you might as well not be a dragonborn. Who cares?
And it's not the kind of xenophobia. When they say xenophobia, there's baggage in the modern day that brings along with it.
Right.
That means you're ready to murder people.
Right.
Well, in any setting in the modern day, there are plenty of things that will set folks off if you're too unusual or you look out of place. Yep. Imagine if an alien landed and popped out of their spaceship in the middle of our hometown here.
No, how about New York? Cosmopolitan New York.
It wouldn't be bad for people to be cautious.
Correct.
So outsiders can often bring trouble. So being cautious and keeping them at arm's length and maybe not even want to deal with them isn't necessarily something to be to make anybody
upset.
It shouldn't be an issue.
Well, how about this? Well, think about it. You are whether it's not physically iron. Strahd has Barovia under his iron fist.
Sure.
And you see a new dude. You never seen a dwarf before, and one rolls in. You're like, man, what is Strahd up to now? Who is this guy? At a bare minimum, that would cross people's minds. And I mean, if you're like, I just don't want to deal with that, then don't deal with it. But I mean, I think that's another weakness of their new version of Ravenloft. But just my opinion, like it was last. Even our negative one was just an opinion how we would run it.
Yeah. You can make Barovia as cosmopolitan as you want. As unfazed by new-looking folks, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah,
I think it ruins the atmosphere. Another thing that I found out about that, to stay on Ravenloft, is there's no more powers checks, dark powers checks. So that
gifts.
Yeah, but there's no power check. There's no
Oh.
Yeah. There's no inching toward darkness, no dark
Oh.
gift that you want. If you use it, you might get become a dark lord or something like
Right.
that. No, nothing like that. You get the
Oh.
goodies, no downside.
I thought there was a thing where you could, if you chose the gifts, you could have a drawback. But I don't think it's quite as harsh as it was back in the old days.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think it's all goodies, but
It's
I know what
probably
you're-
more of an oopsie.
well, they do talk about, well, ask the player if they think that's good or whatever. I'm like, okay. So anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
They can
Ask
do
the
whatever they
player if they want, if they will feel bad if they have a negative consequence for getting tempted to the dark side.
Right. Shouldn't they just get the
No.
cool stuff without paying for it? Yeah.
No.
Uh,
Might as well just do Scooby Doo.
Yeah, hopefully we can let Ravenloft go now.
Yeah.
What about, so you brought up this next one, dude. I have an idea.
Gatekeeping.
Gatekeeping. And I kind of added myth, false narrative, or choose your friends wisely. and look, I have a definition of gatekeeping. It's the first hit on the interwebs, right?
Okay.
Yeah, here's what it says. Simply means someone who feels as if they can judge the right or wrong way to do something. The idea of gatekeeping goes far beyond tabletop role-playing games. But for the purposes of this article, we'll keep it to just how it affects Dungeons and Dragons and other pen and paper games. So basically the idea is there are apparently people, according to people, that can keep you out of D&D. That's what that word is implying.
Okay. Right. This is the thing though. Like a lot of conversations we have, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please do.
Like a lot of conversations we have, the general we, about things, people use a word
Mhm.
and they sneak in all kinds of crap with that word.
Yes.
And when you call them on it, they're going to say, well, we don't mean any of that. Okay. And with gatekeeping, the connotation of gatekeeping is
Yes.
that when I first think of the word, I'm like, well, who's stopping who from playing? And then you look at a definition like this. It isn't about
Gatekeeping.
it's not about people stopping. It's about people judging.
Right.
So if I just say that's dumb, I'm a gatekeeper.
Right. Yeah. And if you look at, and I don't know if you're going to post any of these articles or the videos we looked at a variety of them, both those that were saying gatekeeping's a thing and those that are saying it's not, and some in between and on the outside. I'll warn you, one of them RPG pundit, so that'll probably throw people off.
Oh no.
That'll be so bad. But anyway, that's an old one too, but he was dead on, which he mostly is in my opinion. Anyway, it's funny that they use that word. It says it simply means someone who feels as if they can judge the right or wrong way to do something. No, it doesn't. That simply is not what it means. But that's okay. Let's go with that. So here's the deal. So I'm trying to think of the worst situation. So say I play at a game store. Me and my four, I'm going to use it, white cisgendered males, friends. We're all five.
Because it's extremely important that we,
I'm that.
call that out.
We're all that. I am completely racist. I'm a sexist. I'm a homophobe. I'm everything. Okay. I'm that dude. Let's say that I am. Okay. And some lady comes in and says, I like to play D&D. And I go, D&D is not for you. We don't allow women at our table. Or I say, you don't know how to play D&D, right? You're a woman. You can only play whatever I say.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I'm a douche. That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing stops her from walking right past me and going to someone else.
Right.
Nothing stops her from going back and looking up on the internet and finding 5 billion things today, examples of groups and ways to play and things to play and to prove that I'm completely wrong quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now you say, well, we need to be more welcoming in our hobby. I mean, we are. And so one person, everybody's got the experience, right? Some dickhead did his thing, like in that case, and was a complete a-hole. And now you can never try to play again. Really? And it hurts you so bad that you can't play again. I mean, that's a pretty bad experience. I don't even know how that experience alone would make you turn off from the hobby. You'd be like, I would never play D&D with that guy. I had plenty of those experiences. Play with people like, I will never play with that guy again. I wasn't like, I'm stopping playing D&D because I'm not welcome to this guy's table. I mean, that's really all it is, right?
Yeah.
So
It's-
go find.
It seems when I was looking at some of these videos, I didn't read any of the articles,
Okay, that's all right. You're not.
but
missing it.
I just read. I was just listening to looking at the videos. They were assigning the gatekeeping term to people being dickheads,
Yep.
doing bad things.
Yep.
Certainly, but they in no way stop people from playing. So,
No.
and even if I want to say role playing is X and nothing else is role playing,
Correct.
and I go online and I go to actual plays and say this isn't role playing. If I go
Only original wood grain box D&D is D&D.
right, I go to Wizards of the Coast. I go to Wizards of the Coast every day, make 10 posts. This isn't role playing. Go to do the same thing at Paizo. I can go to every online forum I can find and say, you guys are doing it wrong. Have I stopped anybody, or have I just made myself out to be a huge dick?
Yes, option 2.
So what I think people do with the gatekeeping term is they collect all of the bad actions together, and they use gatekeeping as an umbrella term. And when the word gatekeeping connotes something different from what they are saying.
Correct, and they shouldn't use that word.
And
it's not barring
but they
people from-
are in some ways trying to assign that value to it as well.
Correct, because it's not really that thing. And now look, I'm sure there are probably a lot of people that tried playing D&D or some version of the game. I know some people like a friend of ours, Jess, who used to live up here, and hopefully she's listening and she can corroborate this. I believe she told me she tried D&D back in the day when she was in high school and played with some dudes and thought it was just completely stupid. I mean, just the way they were doing dumb stuff. I don't know if she said she felt it was sexist. She just thought it was an idiotic game, and she quit. And when she moved up here and she played in my game, she goes, man, this is so much more fun than what I remember. It's nothing like what I remember. She told me some things they did, and I was like, that sounds ridiculous. No wonder you left. And so she bowed out for years. And there are some people that I could imagine if I show up at a game table and people are like, Randy, you're too white and freckled to play D&D. If it's my first time showing at a game store, I'm just trying on my own, I might feel put off. I get it. I feel put off. But if I really want to play the game, if I'm really pumped about it, I'll find somebody else. You keep looking. I mean, I would. Or if you get put off that easy, I don't know what to tell you. And we can't be there to guard everyone, to make sure they're okay and they don't face these a-holes. There's a lot of a-holes that game because there's a lot of a-holes in the world. And gamers just get their percentage of it. And
right,
it's not
because it's a social game. When people interact, eventually you'll find the bad guys and they will do bad things and call them out on their bad things. And I mean, don't hang out with them.
Yeah, exactly. Which like you would do in any hobby or any activity.
Right.
I'm going to see a movie and I'm sitting with people that are blabbering and being complete jerks. I might walk out and leave. Doesn't mean I won't come back at the 11 o'clock showing the next day and try to watch it.
Right.
It's silly and it's kind of crybaby. I mean, I agree that all these actions they describe are pretty much all wrong.
Here's another thing though. Here's our side of the fence. Now, we will highly criticize WotC and Paizo.
Yep.
And maybe some indies as well about the direction they're going in their game.
Sure.
We were accused of crying about people taking away our hobby. We've never said that.
No.
I never even thought that. I'll just play something else.
They can't take my hobby if they tried.
No. And I will never use that terminology for Wizards of the Coast, but there are people on our end of the spectrum who will. They will call that gatekeeping, and will call gatekeepers WotC perhaps, or Paizo, and
I don't think they're gatekeepers at all.
No, they just have a creative direction I don't like. I'll play other things. I've got my stuff. They don't interrupt. They don't interfere with my ability to play any kind of role-playing game.
Truth is, please, I hope this doesn't happen, but God forbid, my house burned down tomorrow. And I got just enough money to have a place to live, and that was it, nothing else. And I lost my job, and I couldn't rebuy any of my stuff. And none of my friends would help me out, which I'm sure they would. I would probably get some things. But let's say I did.
Fantasyland.
Let's say if I didn't,
Mhm.
I could say, Joe, you want to play D&D tomorrow? And you're like, Randy, how you going to do that? You ain't got any books. I said, do you want to play? Yeah. Guess what Randy could do?
Randy could play.
I would run you a damn good D&D game.
Mhm, mhm,
And I'd say, what edition? You pick it. I don't give a crap.
mhm.
I wouldn't be perfect because you bring your player's handbook. I don't remember the rule, Joe. Oh, I got it. But dude, I can run a game. I don't need the stinking rules anymore.
No.
Me in particular, it can't happen. Nobody can shut me down.
40
Yeah.
years of DMing. You might need to reference obscure rules, but you can run a game without a book.
But I could write monsters up. I could
Yeah.
write a story. We could play, and I'd be pretty dang close.
Yeah.
You know, whatever the rules were, I'd be close. But I mean, having said that, get away from that. But the point is, I think people had bad experiences, and I hate it if it turns them away from the hobby. But what can you do about it? And you're not going to fix it by just complaining. One of the videos, a guy was saying, "This is an example of a gatekeeper. You're a gatekeeper, and they're all cowards or whatever." I'm like, I don't know. They might be, but the point is, they're just jerks. Don't play with jerks.
Right.
I mean, you know, Andy may not want to play with me because I'm a jerk to him. Whatever. Don't play. It's fine. He can get away with that because he doesn't have to play with me. Even if he lived here, if he lived next door to me, he could not play D&D with me. That would be okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt my feelings. Wouldn't hurt his feelings. And we would get along fine. We could still be neighbors. Wouldn't be an issue.
We don't need a new word for being a jerk.
No, we
Which
don't.
is what the gatekeeping word is. It's a new word for being a jerk.
Well, and what it does is it implies there's this people with power and influence
Yeah.
can do something to keep you from playing. I'm sorry, some neckbeard at a game store does not have power and influence over me or anyone else. Even if I'm brand new and I'm 13 years old. For example, this bothered me too. One of the articles by this guy, and you know, it's got the great words we love, decolonizing the dungeon.
Whatever.
Yeah, this black kid talks about how he was raised in a mostly white elitist school, didn't feel connected, so he went to the nerds. Notice that backhanded compliment there to the nerds. I go back to the doofuses, and we're playing D&D, and I wanted to play a brown-skinned elf or a dark-skinned elf. My DM said, well, there's only dark elves, but you can play a regular elf, but they're white. He goes, no, we're next to the Anorok Desert in Forgotten Realms. I want to be dark-skinned. I mean, and that's very reasonable. You're right. Elves don't have to be white. And he's just going on, and my DM just kept saying, no. I was like, okay, that was dumb. It was a stupid thing that guy said. He was wrong. You're right. It was shitty of him. But here's the deal. He was 14 because he said, when I was 14, you were 14. He may have been being racist. He may have just been stupid. He may have been, that's what the book says. I don't know what to tell you. Look at these pictures. I've read Tolkien. All the elves were white.
Yeah.
I watched, better yet, I've watched the movies. That's probably this kid's
what
young.
elves look like.
It's what elves look like. You don't get to do, and there's dark elves. That's all it says. It doesn't say brown elves anywhere in here.
Right.
Though it's kind of silly because I believe wood elves are brown. So
Yeah, I have no idea.
D&D game. I know in 13th Age they have a darker skin tone. They're brown. Right. I mean, my point is the kid's right, but he's blaming it on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it was so horrible. That experience was so bad. Okay, I get it, but you know, you guys were 14. Can you pretend like maybe he wasn't a supreme racist? Because you know what, he probably wasn't.
Right.
You know, you're 25
If he was a
now.
supreme racist, you wouldn't be in his table.
No, you wouldn't. Get over yourself. But he used that as gatekeeping and stuff. So a 14-year-old dungeon master at lunch
Whatever.
is gatekeeping. Get over yourself. You're so caught up in your own stupidity. It's not even funny.
Right.
And but that it's just one of many things. Using words that don't mean what the gatekeeping means something. Someone's at the gate keeping you out. No one's doing that. Absolutely no one. Not even if you're that, what did Andy say? Pink, one-armed, black, lesbian woman.
Right.
I'm not keeping you from playing D&D. Not at all.
Right.
There's no way that I'm doing that. You know, even if I were to say you can't play at my table, which I wouldn't say that by default. It just depends on if she was, you know, super spewing crazy left-wing crap all the time we couldn't play, or she was being a jerk or something else. If she was a regular person, I wouldn't care.
Right. And a lot of these folks will level the gatekeeping terminology at these specific things that we've talked about. But will they lodge them at Wizards of the Coast for saying for having in their new Ravenloft book
Uh-huh.
words to the effect of "You're doing it wrong.
Yep, they do.
This is the
If
way you
you-
should do this. The other ways are no good."
You should have all sexualities, all genders, all 4,000 of them, all different.
No, I'm just talking about Ravenloft.
No, that's a gatekeeper. By this definition, that would be a
I'm just saying what's in the new Ravenloft
Oh, the
book.
okay, all right.
Yeah. So this new book that just came out, are these same people going to lodge the gatekeeper? I'm not going to, because it's not gatekeeping.
No, it's not.
It's just not what I want to do.
Mhm.
I'll do something else. But will
Let's
these
skip-
people
okay.
lodge that at? I mean, I know I was watching Aaron the Pedantic,
Yeah.
and he was saying that Wizards of the Coast gatekeeps.
He did. I don't agree with it.
But he's at least being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these folks in our list that are saying the gatekeeping word and using it unironically,
Mm-hmm.
will they lodge that at Wizards
Probably
or
not.
at Paizo or some other company that has products that say you're doing it wrong if you're not doing it this way?
Right.
In essence.
What if I want my orcs to be evil monsters?
Right.
And what if there's no female orcs? What if orcs just spring from the ground?
Your gatekeeper.
Yep. I'm saying they're gatekeeping me because
Mhm.
I can't do that. I shouldn't
I
do that.
can't.
I should
Yep,
let
yep.
see all these representations and all these this and that. Like, our dark elves are vile and they all worship Wolf. No, there's the green shadow dark elves who are just elves, but whatever. I don't know. It's just stupid. Actually,
So yeah, there's so many people playing games, so many different places on our planet that and you can find so many games online. But this is where this has more heft is in playing with strangers. So
Yes.
in our group, this is a non-issue.
right.
I mean, we've had discussions about things, about gaming, and we lodge our opinions. And
Sure.
if there were low T individuals around, they would probably use the gatekeeping word. But
Right.
but we don't worry about that stuff. But we're all friends.
Yeah.
If you're doing a pickup game at a game store, or you're trying to find an online game, or you're at a convention, then and you're playing, essentially you're finding strangers to play with.
Right.
This is where you're going to run into these things a lot more than with just folks that you gather over the years and have a cadre of friends that you can play games with.
Same with the X card. We talked about the X card too.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I want to qualify there at the bottom where I said a better definition of gatekeeping. I really should say better definition of being a jerk.
Right.
That's still not gatekeeping, but a guy made a good point down there. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. But
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. I think you're right. I think it's a lot of
These things
are-
come to the fore in those sorts of settings.
You think, minus the pandemic, our society, it seems like our society is overly fond. What is it with this? I guess because I'm just from a different generation. So here, if Andy's listening, I'm going to whinge a little bit.
As if we haven't already been.
Correct. But well, to his mind, probably, I don't think so. But we just
Right.
the ideas we disagree with, which is gatekeeping. But let me whinge. Why aren't there? And you know what? This is not a good. And I'm not even going to say it. Well, I want to say this. It seems like people that play online play with a lot of different groups, and there's a few people that sound like they probably have real relationships with these folks. But if you're just playing at game stores and at conventions with random people all the time, I guess that's all you got. Maybe it's all you got. I was thinking, what, are people not playing in more standard groups much anymore?
Well, maybe it's in addition to.
Standard, I mean, the way we used to play when we grew up and be. Why aren't people like us, Joe?
No, but it may be in addition to.
Yeah,
So
true.
So if you went to a convention like Gen Con, you would play
Yep.
with strangers. And
Yes.
if someone looked at you sideways, they would.
I've throw the X card up immediately. I'm afraid.
6'2", 300 pounds. I'm afraid of you.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that this comes up
Gatekeeping is a
with
bad word for this. It's really just don't be a dick.
It's a bad word, and these kinds of activities come up in settings where you're playing mostly, I think, with strangers.
Yeah.
It could be people you know,
Yep.
but I think it's more often than not playing with strangers or people who aren't your friends.
I mean, I guess if you're a 12-year-old kid and you've never played D&D and it just sounds good because you watched Matt Mercer and Critical Role once, and you roll into a convention or a game store for the first time, and some 54-year-old dude like me, or not like me, whatever, some dude tells you when you sit down, you're too young to play a wizard. You could only play a fighter. You can't do that. And I start being the butthole, and you get put off by that. I guess I could see a young 12-year-old getting a bad view of the hobby. That would probably be not too shocking. It's still not gatekeeping. It's just that guy, dude, you may have just turned that dude off from a hobby he might would have loved. Having said that, if you're an adult, 20 years old, 25, 21, 19, 37, and the same thing happens, you just get up. If you want to, you say, you're a dork, I'm leaving. And you go, there's got to be, but I mean, if I'm really into it, Matt Mercer and his buddies are having a good time. Sure, just go to the internet, dude. Just start typing. Is there anybody out there that plays D&D like this? And then you'll see a million people. Oh no, that guy was a jerk off. He was a gatekeeper. He was this. Don't. And you're like, okay, I just found the wrong dude. Go do something else. Play on the internet. Go put your card up at the game store. Whatever it is, you can find a game of people that you can stand.
Right.
I
mean, it's fine to. I mean, I think sometimes in these discussions we can tend to downplay the occurrence of these things, and that's not what we're doing.
No, I'm not.
These things happen.
I've had them happen. I've seen them.
We're just saying the term gatekeeping is a mistake.
Yeah, it is. It is literally, as I had said before there, I don't think it's a false narrative. I don't think it's a myth. I think it's not a thing. It's the wrong word. And I think you need to choose who you play with wisely.
Yeah.
And be prepared to deal with idiots because, well, you live in a world where there are idiots and jerks.
Yeah.
And why can't we just leave it at that? We used to just call them jerks. Now all of a sudden they're gatekeepers.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. So
it's a weird postmodern, language changes over time and with use. And that doesn't mean that those changes are always good.
No, or it doesn't mean that they make any sense.
Persisting with this would be bad. I mean, to a degree. I just think it's a category error. It's a bad word.
It's not a good word for what they're talking. It's better. Why don't I just say don't play with jerks? How is that not enough?
Right.
I don't know. Oh well. I got nothing else, man.
Okay. Well, I guess did we cover all the bases on that you wanted to cover with gatekeeping?
I think so, unless you got something else. I got nothing else that I really want to.
No, because I think we did it. We solved gatekeeping.
We did. It's not. Don't use that word. Just say people were jerks sometimes. Please don't give up after your first try. You will find a group you like. Just because you don't like playing with me means there are thousands of other gamers you probably would have a darn good time playing with.
Especially now.
I mean, wow. That's where online, if you like the online stuff, unlike this old fuddy-duddy, you can do it, man. And you play a whole lot more than I get to. So.
And, for what it's worth, don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a jerk. Let people play and, and try to enjoy your game. Now, to be fair, there can be times where the way you want to play clashes with other people. I mean, you roll into a group and they're like, hey, Joe, we play BXD&D cut down to levels 1 to 6. 6th level, we retire our characters and we start over. That's how we roll. And if you get a Magi Guide, that's cool, but don't expect more than one over your career. Joe might be like,
I know who not to play with.
Or you might really like the guys and go, I like hanging out with you and I'll play some, but I'm going to be looking for a different group.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Just know who you're doing. Yeah. All right, man.
Gatekeeping is a dumb word. Don't be a dick.
There you go.